regional cooperation, security, safety, development, trade, and business. Today, I have the distinct honor and pleasure to welcome Professor Uzi Rabi, the Director of Regional Cooperation in the Mediterranean for the Moshe Dayan Center at the University of Tel Aviv. My name is Dr. Marios Efthymiopoulos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Strategy International. And this is Prime Analysis. Dear Professor Uzi, thank you very much for coming on another web series of Strategy International.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Marios.
So today, having you here in Cyprus and with the opportunity of you being here, I wanted to discuss a great deal of things, namely with regards to the bilateral relations of Cyprus and Israel and Cyprus, but also discuss the opportunities that come in a post-new security, if I can say, architecture, post the events, the atrocities that happened in October 2023. But before we go into this, we usually start with the life of our guest speaker. So please tell us, how did we end up having in front of us Professor Uzi from the University of Tel Aviv? What was his objective vision, his dreams about life?
You know, that's really a life story. I mean, my parents were born in Iraq. So from the beginning, actually, I grew up in a house where English and mainly Arabic, Hebrew too, had been spoken. It was the early years of Israel as a state. I was a child that time that had to see from close the challenges Israel was facing from Arab states. And that was kind of an experience that was to shape, for better, for good, my perception, my life. And basically, I was there when I went to school. I took the, languages as not as elective, but as mandatory, and that was my foci. And then in the army, I was enlisted to the intelligence unit. And thereafter, in the University of Middle Eastern Studies, even if my family actually would have loved actually to see me as a lawyer, because Babylonian Jews actually are fond of two main occupations, lawyers and accountants. But it ended up in Middle Eastern Studies, and I went all the way with Tel Aviv University. Part of the PhD actually had been done in London because I had to sit a lot of time there in the archives gathering materials. And thereafter, actually, I, was on board in Tel Aviv University, the head of the department, the head of the research center named Merkaz Dayan. And basically, this has become my life because, I am one of those who do work extensively on that, not only in the university and academic life, but also when it comes to the Israeli public and beyond.
Yes.
So that was full-time job until this moment. And frankly, this is something that I like doing. I love doing. And basically, I think that I was lucky to have kind of an occupation that goes in line with what I like and what I think. Of course, everybody would or could have said that he would rather do some other things too, but this is what we can in our life, and that was my way.
And I think I think that that actually showed, because we have to tell to our audience that we first met in Israel in 2022, where, among others, you do an extensive work on the field, and you actually invite experts to share this knowledge about what is Israel, how does Israel think, what sort of life and culture does exist within Israel. And I had the pleasure to be welcomed by you and your colleagues as well, at the Moshe Dayan Center, where I literally saw two things. You're basing your science into the importance of cross-sharing cultures, and the second part is that you look at the field, and it is very important to showcase the field and the extensiveness of the work. Hence, also, I guess, why you're here. Also, we are pushing for this relationship between the two countries, Israel and Cyprus. But your knowledge, your capabilities, and the way that you're sharing the information to those that are willing to learn and understand more, is very valuable. I personally learned a lot, and it was, as I told you earlier, it was an eye opener for a great deal of things, including also the political elements, the security stakes, also the trade, the opportunities, the technology, added values, and goes on and on and on. Tell us a few things about the programs and the importance on how you consider.
Well, this program actually, first of all, I couldn't agree with you more actually while describing that, but I have to tell you, this program actually was given birth by myself and some other colleagues of mine who thought that, theory, knowledge by itself is not suffice actually to build something of kind of a real meaning. We have to make a combination between our knowledge and theory and praxis. And all the more reason when we got so many comments from academicians all over the world about the conflict, about the way it should be taught. And then what became clear, it appears that people actually are skipping so many things because they haven't got the taste or the flavor
Indeed.
of what you can find on the ground. So what we did is just we were compiling kind of a workshop that could, or should combine 20, 25 academicians from all over the world, people who are dealing with the Middle East one way or the other, the conflict. They could come from different disciplines, anthropology, political science, Middle Eastern studies, etc. But the most important thing was to show them what Israel is from within.
Yes.
The pressures,
Yes.
the tensions, and the most important thing is not to take Israel, though in spite of the fact that it is a minuscule and tiny state, don't take it as a monolith.
Yes.
Israel is so many things that before you're going to pass a judgment, you have to be sure that you are well balanced after being familiar with all these peculiarities of Israel. And I have to say that it has been 20 years till now that we are doing that. Hundreds of academicians from all over the world had the opportunity to view things from a different angle or
Absolutely. Yeah.
perspective. And everybody would take it the way actually he or she thinks it should be taken. Everybody would bring it into his curricular the way he or she thinks they should. But there is advantage. There is a kind of a thing which is very, very conspicuous when it comes to academicians. After having seen things on the ground, they cannot actually stick to their pure theory or knowledge. They have to just
Yes.
start combining things. And those combinations came up with a lively, this is what I got from many
Yes,
of
yes,
them,
yes, yes,
lessons,
yes.
discussions, and some of them actually were encouraging their students to go to Israel to see things, because it is totally different to see things from here than from there. And after having been there, people felt much stronger while talking about the conflict, not coming up with slogans, but actually having kind of a keen awareness of how complicated things are, and that was to be resulted in a more well-balanced approach while dealing with either Israel, Palestinians, conflict, Middle East.
And indeed, to speak the truth in this, with a group of people that we were there, we were always discussing, either when we were having the meetings or even unofficial meetings, but we're also discussing that, as I said, eye opener. I think it says a lot, because you try to show us all elements. You showed us Gaza. You showed us the West Bank. You showed us the Druzes.
Yeah.
You showed us the borders with Lebanon. You told us about the strategic challenges. You showed us the kibbutz. We heard about amazing stories, bad stories in many issues, in many cases, stories that made me really cry about the whole conflict, the whole area, because the potential of those areas, those countries in the Middle East, in its wider potential, is amazing. And that's what I took outside. But I also took that it is not easy to construct a storyline that brings stability. And I'm going to try to pivot, if you want, a bit into the political situation so we can start talking about the periphery. And I'm going to start with the most important thing. How does, as a scientist, as an academic, as a person who's an interconnector between the public and the government sectors, how do you understand Israel vis-a-vis the periphery? How does Israel sees its immediate periphery, the Middle East? That probably includes also Cyprus or Greece as well. And what do you think are, I'm not going to say the volatilities, probably the volatilities, we know them, but most importantly, the opportunities that may be from now onwards?
You know, this is a very timely question, because I think that in the aftermath of the 7th of October 2023 atrocities, one of the bitter lessons Israel had to glean from this fiasco is that when it comes to the periphery, Israel is not there. Israel basically has been and still is a state which is tightly connected to the Western experience. Arabs, Muslims, even Mediterranean, is something to be understood as kind of a given fact. It is not an essence. I'm talking about the way Israel actually perceived that.
Yes.
Not as an essence, but as an environment where Israel is stuck in the middle of it. That is a mistake. And this was very, very evident when it comes to the curriculum. At all levels, the foci was history of the world, history of the West, mainly. What about history of the Arabs, Muslims, Mediterranean? That was kind of a backwater.
Due to the fact of the importance of the landscape and the trying to control the landscape, I presume.
Yeah.
The whole landscape of the Middle East, not only Israel.
Exactly. But you know, Israelis rather introduce themselves as part and parcel of the West. that was a mistake, because you have to be well connected, first of all, to the place you are identified with. We are part and parcel of the Middle East. We are Middle Easterners. We are part of the Mediterranean. And these are our main identities. Now, I can understand why did Israel tilt to the west. First of all, Israel is a state that was created by Europeans, Jews, people who came from Asia and Africa.
Yes. All over the world.
Yeah, they were sort of newcomers, but after the, Europeans were there already, established Israel in line with their experience from East Europe, from different, I would say continents, but definitely not Asia and Africa. So that was a sort of melting pot. It is yet to be melted, as we say, because, you have so many influences and so many effects that should be reckoned with. In my opinion, this would be something that we are going to see in the next generation. A different type of an Israeli which is much more aware about his being part of the Middle East and the Mediterranean. This is going to be reflected, in my opinion, at all levels. And this is not something Israel could skip, because it has to do with life, with survival, and with self-perception. And basically, we are trying to do that also in the university with Mediterranean studies, with Middle Eastern studies. And I am very, very proud to announce or to declare that in the recent years there are so many contacts with Arab states,
Yes.
something which is unheard of, and it's still there. I keep the hope that with the removal of what we call the bad guys, or at least the marginalization of them, we're going to have kind of a very, very glory march of those who would like actually to have a different Middle East, of those who understand how important Mediterranean is. And then we are going to see compilations and cooperations of states that maybe actually were friendly to each other, but didn't find off creating kind of a framework that would go all the way A to Z, not only in a specific item, energy, oil, and gas, but also when it comes to culture, also when it comes to security, also when it comes to policy issues. This is, in my opinion, something that we are going to do. It's in the offing, but it would take time for everybody actually to readjust himself or herself to the changing circumstances.
And I think that this is a result of the Abrahamic Accords. This is the importance that Israel laid on the Abrahamic Accords, away from the political recognition between the states. This is the strategic levels of approach of Israel towards the rest of the Middle Eastern countries, including also the Gulf.
Definitely, Abrahamic Accords were sort of a fresh, step by which to make people believe that nothing should go either peace or war. Normalization was kind of a recipe by which you can cooperate with Arab states in a very respectful manner and create kind of a mutual benefit for both sides. That it's still there. We have to be very, very, I think, sensitive with these states, because they are very courageous doing that. I do appreciate United Arab Emirates a lot, Bahrain too, for being that courageous and coming up with that. What remains to be seen is whether actually the Saudi-Israeli normalization which is a huge elaboration on the Abrahamic Accords, is going to be fulfilled. Once it is there, I think we are crossing the Rubicon together and create kind of a precedent when it comes to the Middle East and the Mediterranean.
And I think that is also the essence of the atrocities that happened in October 2023. I personally, I blame Iran for doing this because they knew that the time was coming between Saudi Arabia and Israel to self-recognize each other and to establish relationship. Already the relationship has been blossoming unofficially since 2020. The airspace, the allowance of the airspace of allowed to fly over Saudi airspace and goes on and on and on, plus other important elements that laid, if you want, the foundation for further negotiations. So can I ask you something? I know that it is important to discuss about Syria and Lebanon and what is happening, the terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. I want to ask you before we go into this one part of the previous question that I had. What's the role of the Trilateral, as we call it here in Cyprus and Greece, of the relationship as it evolves, and how does Israel see the relationship of Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, Cyprus, and Greece? How is it evolving? What are the opportunities? Are there any challenges? What do you think in the Middle Eastern framework can help? We seemingly are pivoting as well, both Greece and Cyprus, into the Middle East more and more. How can this help, if you want, Abrahamic Accords plus, if I may call it like this?
It's plus because I can tell you, and you know that, Marius, that even the UAE, I may say Saudi Arabia, and others would like to have this Mediterranean item be included in this whole thing. But let me tell you that I think that these three countries have to be more proactive in their bid.
Agreed.
For getting sort of a much more, I would say, sophisticated and solid cooperation. And I tell you why. First of all, culturally, I think that we have many, many similarities. I do see that while in Greece, while in Cyprus. I feel as if I am in, Tel Aviv or in some other parts of Israel, because the people, I don't feel that I'm in a foreign country, as I do feel while in London, while in the States, or even while in Arab state.
Proximity to the Middle East.
Yeah. And I think that this is something that we have to work on. So basically, our theme is, why won't we extend the Middle East that way that the Mediterranean will be part and parcel of it? Because we think that, there is kind of a distinction, which is definitely is sort of a mistake, or sort of a distinction which is very, very artificial. Mediterranean and Middle East are in my opinion, two sides of the same coin. So extension of Middle Easternism to the Mediterranean is going to benefit many. And let me just remind you that when we talk about Mediterranean, it's not all the three of us, Cyprus, Greece, Israel. At a certain stage, you could have Lebanon too. Not to mention the European side on the other part of the Mediterranean.
Italy is interested quite a lot.
Italy, North Africa.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, this could be definitely kind of, I would say, kind of a industrial spot, technological spot. We can actually promote our understanding when it comes to energy, when it comes to, let us say, all these efforts about environmental studies. But on top of that, we could build up a joint ethos another identity on top of our nationality, which is going to be regional. And that should be Mediterraneanism. And we should take it. It doesn't contradict Middle Easternism. It's just a complementary.
Yes.
So once we have that, we are going actually also to serve well this bid of connecting East and West, because all of us are kind of a bridgehead between Asia and Africa and Europe.
Yeah.
Once we are going to do that, we are going to change the tone and the rhythm and the importance of this region in world politics,
And that affects definitely
in world
the
economy. Yes. So I think it's high time, 2025, to, as I said before, be a little bit more proactive
Yeah.
while dealing with that.
I agree. I agree.
Of course, there are some security issues within it. We should talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
We have some, I would say, some states in the region who are being taken and perceived by all of us as troublemakers or enemies or whatever.
A list of things.
Yes, but we don't want to wage a war or something, but, we have to take care of our interests. And I think that there is a unique convergence of interests, especially this time, for all these states. And we can do a lot of things together. But I have to say, it cannot be confined to energy, gas or oil and stuff that is already being seen there. This cooperation should be also be extended as to include culture, history, teaching, education, security. It could be soft, it could be harsh, but we should come together and create in the Mediterranean sort of a triangle where everybody knows that there is kind of a very, very close contact between its ingredients. And if we are going to come together, we are much stronger than we are going to do that by ourselves alone.
In my professional lifeline, I always believed, especially that the Abrahamic Accord was coming, so we saw it coming. From the sides where I was staying, where I was in the UAE or even in Cyprus or in Greece, I saw it as an opportunity to discuss a bit higher in a political framework. That because our leaders are always going around this element, but they never look at that opportunity as an opportunity to be proactive, I always thought, and hence the creation of Strategy International, to implement dialogue in a country such as Cyprus, which may not pivot in the highest level of politics, but can be mediation, negotiation, dialogue at the political and scientific and people-to-people level, and that also includes definitely business investment, like IMEC we mentioned, petrol and gas and oil. So IMEC as an example, but they have to take a decision on how to pivot towards dialogue in a very, very structural, as you said, Mediterranean way. Having said that, you also mentioned that there are challenges. And I want to go to the security elements because we always say, and I think it's true, that without safety and security, there can't be progress and development. We have a great deal of a list of problems, and I'm going to go short into this. Terrorist groups, and those terrorist groups and the interlink with other terrorist groups. I have the feeling from what I read, from what I see, that terrorist groups, not only in the Middle East, but away from the Middle East, in Africa, in Central Asia, and so on, they communicate with each other.
Sure.
And they communicate with each other, maybe not in the same ideologies, but in the same communal interests. The interests being that we want to change the world according to our extreme ideology, whatever this may be. Tell us a few things about the most important element, which is the how to fight, how to counter terrorism wherever this may be, including also in the regional approach, Hezbollah or Hamas.
So first of all, I think that when I say more proactive, I don't want to be pushy.
Yes, yes.
We have to give it the time.
to mature. Yes.
But you know, it goes without saying that while we are fighting back those terrorist groups, it is much better when we are doing that while summing up or gathering our forces and knowledge, exchange of information, because as you said, this is not kind of a specific group there. It is much more than that. And they are closely linked, all these organizations, as to create a kind of an ongoing problem to the very survival and existence of state and societies. First of all, we have to make sure that we do internalize how grave and deep the problem is. We cannot ignore it. We cannot let it go unnoticed. But we have to think together how to build it up. In my opinion, it is not just, a quantum leap forward. You cannot have it in one day. I see that as a process. And what I would like to have is not only politicians talking to each other. I am a great admirer of what I call people-to-people thing. I do see that with the UAE. I think that we academicians and others, we have a very distinct role in this whole process. And we can be kind of interlocutors between public and politicians to come up with something which is very, very important. So let us build a kind of an ethos, legacy,
Yes.
which is going actually to be very typical for all of us, very relevant. Let us deal with, energies and cooperation in the energetic dimension is already
Things
there.
that bring us together.
Yeah, but let's just slowly or gradually move to the harsh dimensions of security, because soft dimensions are not less important. We have to do that in tandem. If we are going to have that steadily, gradually, with the passage of time, you're going to see sort of a new generation of Mediterranean people who are very proud of their nationality. But still, they do hold kind of Mediterranean identity, which has to do with the region itself and for the mutual benefit of all the partners in that kind of a coalition. I think that we cannot skip that opportunity, because in the world actually which is being opened up in front of our eyes, cooperation, regional cooperation, which is based on so many things or dimensions, as I mentioned, is going to be, in my opinion, the recipe for future survival.
Yes.
And this is why I think it is time for us. We are small states. Remember that. Small
Geographically.
states. Geographically and...
Not power-wise or
No,
financially.
but even if you are that powerful, like Israel, you are still small. And small states has kind of a different calculus. So when small states are gathering together, all the more reason that they are going actually to talk about something that is based on a common denominator. Still, we have here giants, Turkey, Iran, when it comes to the periphery, as you said.
They're trying to...
Not to mention other big or huge states. So I think that the time has come to go for this Mediterraneanism. For so many reasons, believe me, so many reasons. But the time has come actually to just move forward with that. And each one of us has to be not only more proactive, but a little bit more courageous. I know that there are many, many considerations.
Yeah, of course.
I know it is not that easy. But if we are going to decide on that, we are going to position ourselves in a more, I would say, in a more respectful and meaningful way. It is as to say that, this triangle, for example, can be added to the Abraham Accords. It is part and parcel of IMEC. This is kind of a link which is going to be very, very vital and essential to whoever wants actually to deal with IMEC thing or Abraham Accords. There are many opportunities actually that are going to be, we can find it there if and when we are going to come up as kind of a body which is, on the one hand, speak about kind of a Mediterranean identity.
Yes.
Second, it is based, of course, on a regional understanding.
I'm gonna flip a bit the coin so we can go into a few states. So I'm gonna mention to you states, and I want you to tell me your opinion about it.
Yep.
Recently, shortly.
Yeah.
Recently, you published a book in the UAE about the UAE. Tell us a few things and your thoughts and your experiences about the UAE so
Very,
far.
very unique. An exception to the rule. Arab Federation. Very successful. While looking at it, having known it for years, I do think that it is supposed to be the most successful state in the Middle East where past and present are working together hand in hand toward a new future. I mean, many people would ask me, is it a democracy or not? And I think that we have to set this aside and talk about the UAE. When we talk about those Emirates, they took a courageous stance while coming together once again, coming together, becoming a federation, using in a wise manner actually oil money. And the most important thing, they were to create an ethos which didn't make actually the uniqueness of each emirate null and void, not at all. But they actually have shown that we can keep many identities and we can respect each one of them and have sort of a dialogue between them. I think that culturally speaking, or socio-culturally speaking, and even politically speaking, they have managed to build kind of a very, very stable or a kind of a stability when it comes to the United Arab Emirates, which is, in my opinion, very, very unique in the Middle Eastern panorama. So I think it's a model to be followed. I am not trying to say that, it's 100%, you have pros and cons everywhere. But when it comes to the United Arab Emirates, they did understand what is the most important thing. How you're going to actually foster a policy
Yes.
that would better the next generation. It is not kind of a one shot. It is not me here. We have an obligation to the next generation. And as I said before, you're going to look at the same time about past and present and try to come up with a combination that would lead or facilitate a better way for the future.
Oman, it's coming up, especially with official negotiations with Iran. Oman and Bahrain. I want you to tell me about those two.
Well, Bahrain is a very tiny state. It is archipelago, follower of Saudi Arabia, uh, having the shadow of Iran, because
Hmm.
Iran has a kind of a territorial claim on it.
Hmm.
It is a Sunni family, which is ruling kind of a small state where Shi'is are the majority. Uh, Once again, actually, they are part and parcel of the Abraham Accords. They are trying actually to come up with something else like the Emirates. They have a way to go actually with that. But in my opinion, once again, courageous tiny state, still very, very close to Saudi Arabia. And I'll take it as a kind of another item in this Abraham Accord thing, with the opening to kind of a different reality or future. Oman is once again, it's totally different. It is an Arab state, but when you look at the socio-demographic actually composition of Oman, you would see how cosmopolitan it is, because you have Baluchis, Iranians, and others. We have to understand that Oman is basically located in the Indian Ocean, basically,
Hmm.
or the Arab,
Arab Gulf in
yeah,
the Indian Ocean.
Arab Gulf, as they said. Uh, Oman is, sort of a sophisticated mediator while needed, especially when it comes to United States and Iran. They have special relations with Iran. They are very, very bothered about what's going on in their neighbor from the other side, Yemen. And they have a history of, rebellion coming from the far in Oman, which was actually inspired by some revolutionary activists from Yemen. But Oman is a state that would like to have kind of a different thing. Oman is a state that would like actually to promote stability. But the way actually they'd rather do that with the new Sultan is a little bit different than it was in
Yes.
the former Sultan
Yes.
Qaboos. So we are
Caboose.
in a Qaboos. We are in a different opera here. But the Sultanate of Oman, in my opinion, is the next in line after Saudi Arabia. I am pretty sure that if that is, we're going to have this normalization with Saudi Arabia, this would serve to further exclude Iran, put it in kind of an isolation, and create kind of an impetus for others to be on board. Oman is definitely a candidate for that, even if it is, keeping kind of a posture of neutralism. But I do believe in that, because Ibadism and Oman basically are definitely, Omaniness and Ibadism are, doctrines that strive for more stability, more mutual understanding. And I do believe that Oman would be also on board when it comes to our dream about Mediterranean elaboration on the Abraham Accords,
Yes.
create a kind of a different understanding with the periphery, and let's hope for the good.
Two last questions, very short. I'm going to group the one. I'm going to go to some negative axis. The first question is Turkey, Iran, vis-a-vis Syria, Lebanon. And the second one is a strategic partner that is always there for Israel, and that is the United States. So these two questions, I don't know how short it can be. It can be
Well,
episodes by themselves,
Iran,
but
Iran and Turkey used to be empires. This
mhm,
is the most important thing I can say about them. When it comes to the clerics and revolutionary guards in Iran, when it comes to Erdogan in Turkey, one way or the other, those states are striving for regional hegemony, always. Why is that? Because they do think that they deserve, in accordance with history, to be number one when it comes to the region.
But their history is short-sighted.
Yeah, and this
There are
is
empires prior to this.
yeah. But the dream is there, the myth is there, and when it comes to the region, the Middle East and the periphery, as you said, with all these breakups, with all these cleavages that you can see, that with failed states, their appetite is being opened up.
Like in Syria recently.
Like in Syria recently, like in Lebanon when it comes to Iran. So the pattern and the client is something you cannot skip when you think about Turkey and Iran. Each one of them is thinking days and nights about who could be a client by which actually to put some teeth in my bid for hegemony. United States and Israel, I would be very careful while trying to just sum it up. I would say one thing. There is kind of a historic friendship,
yes,
mutuality. Basically, Israel is being regarded by the U.S. as the only democracy, real democracy in the Middle East. What that could actually contribute to things we have seen, it is still depends on who the president is, which party actually is leading there. We have seen, at least in my opinion, as an Israeli, kind of a sharp difference at times when it comes to either Democrats or Republicans at certain eventualities. So I can't say that this is kind of a monolithic layer with kind of same rhythm. There are ups and downs. Remember that the United States is going through a very stormy period. Look at what's going on when it comes to their politics, their society. Democracies are in the eye of the storm, actually, when we talk in generally speaking. But I think that the bond of relationships is still strong. And we do think that this is something that Israel is lucky to have from the beginning. I hope for the good also when it comes to Israeli-US relationships.
My dear friend Uzi, thank you very much for joining us, first of all. And I would like also to thank the Israeli embassy for making this happen and being together and talking yet again. I had the pleasure to meet you, as I said, back in 22, and it was an honor. Back then, it's an honor still today. We have a great deal of things we can also work together. We can discuss more hours, I guess. Every time we speak, you're an eye-opener by yourself. And I really would like to thank you very much for joining this conversation. Thank you.
Likewise, Mario.
Thank you.
I mean, I have to tell you that I am very pleased to be here. It is, as you said, an eye-opening discussion, and we are talking about a lot of things. It is very important for me actually to enrich myself with some stuff that comes from here, from Cyprus, and of course, together with the embassy here in Cyprus, Israeli embassy. I think that this is kind of a great initiative, and we should take it from here and proceed, thinking on how we can promote the interest of our countries, our societies, and don't forget, we have to create in our lifetime kind of a Mediterranean entity or reality that would serve both our states and Greece too with us. I do hope and do believe that this is going actually to happen, and that definitely would be, in my opinion, a game changer in the history of each one of our countries.
The message is loud and clear. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching another web series of Prime Analysis. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow into our YouTube channel and social media. My name is Dr. Marius Efthymiopoulos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Strategy International. And remember, impact makes a difference.